Okay, so this is Unit 4, Lesson 4, Common Factors of a Polynomial. So a few definitions to start. Factoring is the process of breaking a polynomial down into its products, the numbers that multiply into it. A greatest common factor, as we covered last lesson, is the largest number that divides exactly into two or more numbers, and that can include variables. So we put those two pieces together and look at greatest common factor factoring. What we're doing is we're rewriting the original expression as a product, so as a multiplication of its greatest common factor and another expression. And to do that, there are just two steps. First, we would determine what the greatest common factor is of the polynomial, and then you take that greatest common factor and multiply it by an expression that would be needed in order to achieve the original expression. Sounds weird, but let's take a look at an example. 3x squared plus 12x plus 18. 3 can be divided into any of those numbers. So the greatest common factor is 3. Our first step was just determining that greatest common factor. Then we take that greatest common factor and we multiply it by something, some expression that is going to achieve for us the original expression. So 3 multiplied by x squared is going to give us 3x squared. 3 multiplied by 4x is going to give us 12x. 3 multiplied by 6 is going to give us 18. So we've just factored out the greatest common factor right there. We essentially rewrote the original expression, the 3x squared plus 12x plus 18, as a product of the greatest common factor 3 and this other polynomial here. And what's nice is you can always test to see if you did it correctly, because if you actually performed this multiplication, you should end up with the original result. So let's just test this out. 3 times x is 3x squared. 3 times 4x is 12x. And 3 times 6 is 18, which is exactly what your original expression was. So let's look at the next example. 6x squared minus 3x. Well, 6 is divisible by 3, and 3 is divisible by 3. X squared is divisible by x, and x is divisible by x. So our greatest common factor of those numbers is 3x. So we'll take that greatest common factor, the 3x, set up a pair of brackets, and try to think about what expression we can write here in order to achieve our original expression, the 6x squared minus 3x. So what multiplied by 3x is going to give you 6x squared? 3x times 2x is going to give you 6x squared. And what multiplied by 3x is going to give you negative 3x? Well, 3x multiplied by a negative 1 gives you a negative 3x. So this is our answer. 3x multiplied by 2x minus 1. Now, if you're having trouble figuring out what to write for this expression, then another way to think about this is you had your 6x squared minus 3x. And what you can do is divide that original expression by the greatest common factor. So we'll divide these by 3x, and you'll have 6x squared divided by 3x is 2x. Negative 3x divided by 3x is negative 1. So this 2x times negative 1 is what would go in those parentheses. Next example, 16x squared plus y plus 24x squared times y cubed. Greatest common factor, in this case, well, 16 and 24 are both divisible by 8. Both the 16x squared y and the 24x squared y cubed have x squareds there, and both of them have at least one y. So your greatest common factor is 8x squared times y. So again, we'll start with our greatest common factor, 8x squared times y, set up a pair of parentheses, and figure out what we need to write in those parentheses. 8x squared times y multiplied by something is going to give us this. Well, 8x squared times y multiplied by 2 is going to give you that 16x squared y. 8x squared y multiplied by something is going to give you 24x squared y cubed. If we multiply 8x squared y times 3y squared, we should get that. 8 times 3 is 24, x squared times 1 is x squared, and y times y squared is y cubed. So that would be our answer in that case. Two more examples to do. We have a negative 7a squared b minus 28ab minus 14ab squared. So for our greatest common factor, well, each of those three numbers are divisible by 7. Each of them have at least one a, and each of them have at least one b. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a negative sign here as well, because often what you want to do is you want your first term to be positive, and that can be achieved by, if the first term is negative, that can be achieved by putting a negative sign for your greatest common factor. Let's see how that works. So if our greatest common factor is negative 7ab, then we have our set of brackets, and we figure out the expression we need in order to achieve our original. Well, negative 7ab multiplied by a is going to give us negative 7a squared b. Negative 7ab multiplied by a positive 4 is going to give us the negative 28a times b. And negative 7ab multiplied by 2b is going to give us a negative 14 times a times b squared. So that would be our answer. And again, you can always check this. You can always do the multiplication itself. Negative 7ab times a is negative 7a squared b. Negative 7ab times positive 4 is a negative 28ab. And negative 7ab multiplied by 2b, well, negative 7 times 2 is negative 14. There's an a, and b times b is b squared. And that is your original expression. So to be clear, what's in the green, that was just a test. Okay, last example. Y cubed plus 8x squared y squared plus 2y to the power of 4 plus 16x squared y to the power of 5. Well, there's no number here to take out as a greatest common factor, but we see that each of these terms has at least 2 y's. So the greatest common factor in this case would be y squared. So let's take that y squared, set up our brackets, and figure out what expression we need inside those brackets. Well, y squared times y is going to give you y cubed. Y squared times 8x is going to give you 8x squared y squared. Y squared times 2y squared results in 2y to the power of 4. And y squared times 16x squared y to the power of 3 is going to give you that last term there. And since this is our last example, let's just test to make sure we're correct. Y squared times y is y cubed. Y squared times 8x is 8xy squared. Y squared times 2y is 2y to the power of 4. Y squared times 16x squared y cubed is 16x squared y to the power of 5, which is the same as your original expression. So we're done.